years, but that's quite a big ask.
Right.
But I don't know. Whatever floats my boat when the time comes to make that decision.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'll just, focus on this end of this road season and then into cyclocross, and then, I think I'll just do the one that I'm best at. That's the answer, really, isn't it?
I suppose so. That's the beauty of being a young rider. You'll find out what the future holds. Now, listen, just before we take a break, this is worth pointing out. You can see something special here. This is the entrance, now very modern, but to a very old cave, the Lascaux Grotto. Great story, I should tell you, to go with this. Back in 1940, 4 teenagers crawled down a hole left by a tree which had been uprooted in a storm. And in doing so, they discovered an extraordinary Paleolithic cave full of extremely old cave paintings. The French resistance quickly identified it as a good place to store weapons, as you'd expect, but apart from that, what the boys discovered was said to be effectively the Sistine Chapel of prehistoric art. Extraordinary discovery, just purely by chance, by 4 teenagers back in 1940. It was visited by 1 million people by 1963, when, I suppose somewhat inevitably, it was closed for its own protection. It has tentatively reopened since. You could pretty much say that's a kind of famous 5 for older viewers, a famous 5 type story, or a famous 4 in this case. Great story about the Lascaux Grotto. More from Tom and the race, though. Just under 140 kilometres to go. That's the front of the peloton with the usual names to the 4, and the gap as per just under 5 minutes now to the 2 breakaway riders, Jesbert from Fortunio Oscaro and Juan Alfredo of Wanty Group Gobert. As you'll have been hearing, hopefully, over the last few minutes, my guest in the commentary box today back here in London is Tom Pidcock, young cyclocross and road racer already with a number of successes to his palmares, and I would think plenty more to come. Delighted to have him along today. Do keep the questions coming. We can also, I'm delighted to say, welcome to the programme today Hannah Barnes, women's cyclist who's just finished the Giro Rosa, the women's Giro d'Italia, pretty successfully for Team Canyon SRAM, and she's on the phone now. Hannah, afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you, I think. Hopefully you can hear us. You won a sprint stage, for those that don't know, at the Rosa last week and held a points jersey at one point, so a successful tour for you?
Yeah, it was actually. I got a late call up. I was driving to the national championships, and my team emailed me saying that I need to take part in the Giro. But yeah, it was last minute, because normally at the nationals I have a mid-season break, which I was pretty ready for. So yeah, I was going into Giro not expecting huge amounts from me. Yeah, so to pull that stage one off from stage 3, yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah. So I imagine a kind of pleasant and then maybe slightly frightening surprise to be called up, but you did well in those circumstances, therefore. But a race, I guess, on reflection, rather marred by that terrible crash for the Italian Claudia Cretti.
Yeah, it was, I think, stage 6 or 7, I think. And I didn't know until my teammate Elena Cucini came on the camper and just said that was pretty bad crash. There was not much update on it during the race. But yeah, you always have that in the back of your mind when something you were racing the day before is, had a really serious accident. It was sad. There wasn't much update, but luckily we had good Italians on the team, so they seemed to just be able to give us some news of what they knew. Yeah,
the latest that certainly I have is that Claudia put into an induced coma, which obviously is often the way with head injuries. She is stable, I'm told, but that's after head surgery. So worrying times, of course, and fingers crossed that she makes a full recovery. If there is a little light at the end of the tunnel in the general sense, you think of Annemiek van Vleuten, don't you? Had that terrible crash at the Olympic road race. She was actually Queen of the Mountains, wasn't she, in this year's Giro? So it shows that there is a way back, hopefully.
Yeah, always. You have to really stay positive in those kind of situations. It's hard to always look at the bad side of things, but you have to really stay positive during serious injuries like that. And yeah, it's you definitely know that you're in a family in the cycling community. I mean, I I think I only raced her a couple of times, but it was just pretty overwhelming to hear what her injuries were.
I think it was a pretty tough course, wasn't it? I know it's 10 stages long, the Giro d'Oise. I think there was some pretty serious climbs in there, weren't there?
There was. I think they said originally that it was going to be an easier Giro compared to the last couple of years. But this year it was, every day had a climb in it. There was I think 2 days actually 1 day that was just a pure flat stage. I mean, the stage 3 that I won, we went up to Poggio and just up some climbs in the last, I think 7 and 8 stage were, they were really, really hard. And then the final stage we actually went up a volcano,
wow.
Which wasn't the best way to finish the tour, but I came back to Tampa with a big pizza for the drive back to the airport, which is quite nice.
Yeah, a memento of sorts. Speaking of climbs, obviously Giro is currently, I suppose, the big centrepiece of the women's season in terms of road racing, but there is Lascaux to come, which has developed, I suppose. There's no women's Tour de France these days, sadly, but there is Lascaux, and from what was just the Champs-Élysées, it's now been extended, hasn't it? And this year Lascaux will go up Izoard, the big alpine climb that the men also will have to face. It's only 67 kilometres long, the women's version. Is that a baby step in the right direction? Would that be right in terms of the kind of the politics of women and men's road racing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was great racing around the course, around the Champs-Élysées. I mean, it's such an iconic venue for a race. But, I mean, the course sounds really, really difficult this year. And I do know that some people are a bit sceptical about it, but I think a lot of people are also sceptical about the Hammer Series that Vallon put on. And I think everyone agrees that that was probably the most exciting race they've ever seen. So, I think you have to be positive going into those kind of new races and hope that they work out and they're good. But it's not on my calendar.
Okay.
This year I need to try and fit time off the bike.
Right. So have you got anything else major lined up this season, or is that most of it done for you, do you think?
I do. I'm having a break now, and then I do ride London at the end of July.
Yep. And
then it's quite a lot of PCT training camps with Canyon Stram, and then the next big thing as well. We've got Lizzie. We've got a really strong women's team this year going into Bergen, and I think we can go into that pretty confident that we can get the jersey back. So I think Bergen definitely for me is a big goal.
Yes. Well, we wish you well, obviously, for Ride London and for the World Championships in Bergen later in the year. And Hannah, thank you very much for your thoughts today, and well done on the Giro.
Thank you.
Hannah Barnes, who, as I mentioned, won a sprint stage at the Giro d'Oise last week and was at one stage leader in the points jersey, so well done to her. And of course, fingers crossed for a full recovery in due course for Claudia Creti, the Italian women racer who had that horrendous crash and is stable after head surgery. And back to Tom Pidcock. Obviously, you're just starting out on your career as a near 18-year-old racer, but you'll already know just the fine lines, as we saw on Sunday, between glory and disaster, really, for racers.
Yeah, it's the speeds that you go when you're racing. It's if you do crash, it's going to be, you can really badly hurt yourself.
Yeah. Which is probably why you're sticking to cyclocross for the time being, because you fall off into the mud.
Into the mud, and grass.
Yes, that's one of the advantages. Now, here's another question. They're coming in thick and fast, and we're delighted to get them to you. It's great that people are throwing them at you. How about this one? After a hard race, a can of Coke or Jelly Babies? There shouldn't, I don't think, be a comma in there. I'm a bit of a stickler for grammar. Never mind. Coke or Jelly Babies?
Well, I don't like Coke.
Right.
But if I don't really have anything after race apart from water, but, I'll have Jelly Babies. They're quite nice.
Yeah. Are you a muncher during a race? I don't know how it works in cyclocross. You probably don't get much chance, actually, but when you're racing road, are you someone that needs to keep topping up, or not really?
No, not really. It depends about how much I've eaten before the race. If we've been travelling a lot, then I'll tend to eat a lot because there's nothing else to do. But if I generally don't. I eat sometimes. I eat enough that I have to get through the race, but then after the race, I sort of I switch off. I like, well, I've done the race. Don't really need to eat now. There's no point.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, quite a pragmatic view. That might change as you get a bit older. We shall see. Now, in terms of coping with the demands of a longer race, obviously we've mentioned the Paris-Roubaix win, which was fantastic. The junior Paris-Roubaix. How was that? How was that achieved?
What? How did it go right in the race or in the race?
How did you win?
Well, it was sort of compared to last year when I did it. It was my race prematurely ended after my back brake fell off. But it seemed to this year. It seemed to start a lot slower. It was a lot like the bunch was still. Everyone said it was a lot steadier start, and I don't think there was many crashes either. So the bunch was still, fairly big. I think there were like 60 riders when I sort of attacked, and then we sort of got to this flat section before like sector 8 or something. Then there were like the moves going off the front, and I was like team leader, so I said to Jake Stewart, we need to get some people in this break. So he just went, and then that was the break that went, and I knew that was a winning break, and I thought, well, I need to get across to this. So obviously I shouldn't really take anyone with me, so I just hit it on the next cobble sector, and then 5k later I was in the break, and that was sector 5 where I got across, and then straight onto the Carrefour. And I thought, well, in training we sort of had a race on the Carrefour, and as the corners into it I sort of got a gap, so I thought, oh well, I might as well just go to the front here, then make them chase me a bit, make them use up some energy. And then I got a gap, and then that was it. After I didn't try to attack. I thought, oh, I'm gassed here, I'll do what I can for Jake, and then I had a gap, so I was like, well,
go for it.
Yeah, gotta go now.
Fantastic. And I assume as a Yorkshire lad, you're used to the cobbles, are you? You like the cobbles?
Yeah, well, yeah, the cobbles are great, yeah, but no, Yorkshire's, I think the only cobbles I know in Yorkshire are the ones next to Showing Cycles. Yeah. In Otley.
I'm thinking of the Hovis advert. That's how old I am. You probably don't even know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
No, never mind. The questions keep coming. Here's one, cheeky one really. Who would win a race from Otley to Cav Pav, which I think is, you were explaining to me earlier, is well known to Yorkshire cyclists, featuring you, Scott Thwaites, Lizzie Danian, and the two Brownlee brothers?
Definitely Scott.
Yes.
Yeah. When he comes on the reliability rides in the end of the winter, he just I think, was it last year or the year before? It was like me, Scott, Tom Moses, Toby and Horton. We're all like sort of the only riders left. It's like basically a big ride, but it's sort of a race. And on the way back to Otley from Burnsall, he was just playing with us. He rode off and then waited for us and then rode off again.
Did he?
Yeah, he's definitely.
Just showing you who's boss still.
Yeah.
Eh? Maybe one day you'll get your own back. I'm sure that day perhaps will come. We're keeping an eye, of course, as we do, as we're chatting in here on what's happening on the road. But as you can probably see and guess on a stage like this with the two-man breakaway, not a lot, really. It's pretty flat for most of the way, with just under 130 to go. The gap, as it has been for a while, is around the 5-minute mark. That's the standard, it seems, that the peloton allows any breakaway to go these days. The usual suspects at the front of the peloton, particularly Team Sky, tucked in behind the workhorses, the likes of Vermont and De Gent to the fore. It's Johan Alfredo and Elie Gesbert, one older, one young rider from the two of the wildcard teams, one from Fortunio in Gesbert and one from Wanty Group Gobert in Alfredo, who lead the way. Beautiful scenes of the Dordogne area of France, which is where they've moved to after Sunday, and plenty more to come from Tom, and of course today's stage with a sprint finish at the end of it, and we'll rejoin it in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back. That rather beautiful spot is the Chateau de Belcayre. Incredible spot really in the Vezere Valley of the Dordogne. I don't think it's available on holiday cottages for your summer rent, but what a spot that is, dangling almost that chateau over the river below. Beautiful scenery in the Dordogne region, which is of course where the Tour de France is up to. That gap with the two-man breakaway remains around 5 minutes, 1:25 to go. There are a couple of small category climbs still to come and one intermediate sprint as the race hots up. But if this, for you as it is for me, is the ultimate endurance event in sport, then perhaps almost to match that is the current efforts of Mark Beaumont. We had him on the phone the other day. He's attempting, if you don't know, to ride around the world in 80 days. Stage 1 is en route to Beijing, and Mark, I think, is somewhere in deepest Russia and on the bike as we speak. Mark, where are you?
Hey Matt, yeah, I'm about 2 days riding east of Moscow, and I wish I could talk about scenery. I tell you what, these Russian roads are tough going, just a big touch in the quite industrial area. But I'm looking forward to getting across the Ural Mountains, getting to proper wilderness and into Mongolia.
Good grief, mate. It sounds extraordinary, and not least because I think you had a nasty crash was it yesterday, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was day 9, and I mean, I tell you what, I was pushed across Europe by a cracking tailwind. I was making great time. I set off at 3:30 yesterday morning. It's still dark, it's raining, and in front of me I thought it was just sitting water on the road, but it was actually just a hole in the tarmac. My front wheel disappeared. I hit the tarmac with my face and my left hand, so I've lost quite a bit of my sort of front left tail line, chipped and tooth very badly, and saved my left elbow. So I can ride my left arm on the tri-bars, but it's incredibly painful and strapped. And yeah, losing a good portion of my tooth was not part of the plan, but I'm riding on.
Good grief, mate. Admire your bravery and endurance to lose most of a tooth and clearly banged up left arm and still prepared to get up and go again the next day. You have my absolute support, and just stay brave.
It was quite something, I tell you. And, early morning like that, when you have an accident, the shock hits you, and then I've got an amazing team on the road, performance team and mechanic and whatnot. They got the bike sorted out, and I still managed to get 230 miles in the bank yesterday. So it was still a good day, but I'm in quite a lot of pain today. I'm hoping that will ease off in the coming weeks, and I can just get back into the rhythm. But yeah, a bit of a shocker yesterday. It was nearly a crash to end it all.
No, indeed. Well, it seems superfluous to say stay safe, but do attempt to keep the rest of your gnashes in your mouth and stay on the bike if you can, Mark. And we will hopefully speak again as Beijing looms a little bit nearer. Good luck.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Matt. Take care.
Cheers. Mark Beaumont, who, as I say, trying to get to Beijing as part of his attempt to ride around the world in 80 days. Some feet, 240 odd miles a day, losing teeth en route. Tom, do you fancy that?
Nah, not really.
No.
I can relate to his crash,
no one in
though.
their right mind would. Tom, I think Mark Beaumont looks a bit like that dog today after falling off yesterday. Poor fella. Glorious beasts, those two. But we wish him every success, and certainly can only admire his bravery. In the section we still have left with you, Tom, and hopefully we'll be back for more later. Delighted to have you along today. Here's another question from Junior Nats. Have you recce'd the route for the Junior National Road Race, which is coming up fast, of course, on the 16th of July, so next week? I think you were telling me earlier it's in Oxford or near Oxford. What do you think? And have you been to have a look?
I haven't been to have a look, but I know someone who has, and they say it is... actually, I don't really know what they said. I've heard it from someone else, but I've heard that some people said it's flat, and then other people have said it's quite a hard course. So I have absolutely no idea. I'll have to wait until we go and ride it next Saturday.
Right. So as with a lot of cyclists, you don't really get the chance, or for whatever reason aren't able to recce a ride before you go. So it's kind of third-hand info. You'll find out, I guess, on the day. But would you want it to be tougher rather than flatter?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think the weather forecast is it's not going to be very windy, so you need the hills to make it a hard race, and because I'd like it being harder. It means the best riders. There's better chance of the best riders winning instead of sometimes an outside favourite winning. Okay.
Interesting stuff. We'll pick up that thought with you if we can in the second section of chat as we look at the Chateau du Charbin. Just for those that obviously you can't see Tom today as I can. He is a slip of a lad. I know he's not yet 18, but there's nothing on him, which is why he can get up and down those hills rather easier than the likes of me or possibly, dare I say, you, Ned Boulting.
Yeah, you dare say that, and you said it, Matt, and it's entirely true. Thanks for that. Really nice to hear what Tom had to say, and yeah, for anyone who's not seen Tom race, I would suggest if he's racing anywhere near you, get out on the road and watch him go. He's a huge talent, huge prospect. That's not bad, is it, Chris Boardman?
It's lovely. It's lovely. I thought the maze was a bit rubbish, though. I reckon you've been out of that in about 10 seconds. But so 7 out of 10 because of the maze. He's below par.
Yeah.
We have seen some amazing architecture in this area. I mean, the density of it while we've been just sitting here for the last few minutes is quite incredible.
Yeah, it's a particularly chateau-rich part of the race, as we've gone straight past Belcayre Castle, the Chateau in Clarence and Chapin. And all of them compete with their gardens as well. That's the other feature of the chateaux around here. Some of them have what the French call jardin remarquable. So they are of note and extremely beautiful. Bit of land art there. Another thing that fascinates you, Chris. Rate that 1 out of 10.
No
what
idea.
is it?
No idea. No idea.
What actually is going on there? You've got no idea, have you?
No, none whatsoever.
All right.
The clue was in the fact I said no idea.
No idea. 3 times. One can but try. All right, so that's the race situation. Heading up to about 6 minutes for Vezere and Dordogne. 120.6 kilometres to go, and nothing in terms of categorised climbs to come for the next 40 kilometres, and that's an hour's worth of racing. Which leaves us saying, what are we going to talk about then, Chris Boardman? I mean, these days are, I would imagine, extremely welcome for most of the peloton coming as they do after that hard weekend race.
Yeah, it was absolutely brutal, and you could see that everybody had to dig deep, even just to make time limits over the weekend. And one rest day is just not enough. You know, there's not this magical 24 hours, and then, I feel great again, ready to go. Or indeed, some people do. Some people recover very quickly, and we often see that reflected in the first day back racing. And I think today it's a fast day. It should be the sprinters, even though they're diminished in numbers. What is the largest time gap we've had in this race so far? Because it's not been very big this year at all, has it?
I don't think it's been double digits or even close to double digits yet, has it? Unless, well, when Guillaume van Kiersbroek, that lone Wanty-Goubert rider, went up the road, he might have got 10 minutes.
I've just got over it.
But doesn't ring a bell. No, 5 minutes seems to be the new, well, as David said in the commentary, 5 minutes
it's
seems to be
the
new 10 minutes, exactly.
Well, another thing that's the new thing is that we're seeing an awful lot more team riding, aren't we, when they get whole groups together, and just even though when fairly easy points in the day, they're riding as groups all the time, just vigilant now, which is the kind of racing you'd expect to see if they didn't have race radios, when they'd have to make sure that they could keep an eye on each other if there was a mechanical.
Yeah. Did it not happen so much when you were racing the Tour? Chris, is that not a feature of the old peloton?
Well, we raced with and without radios, and when you were without them, then you had to be much more vigilant to really keep an eye on the top riders in the team. If they had a problem, then it could be minutes until you knew about it. And communication with the team car was accomplished by dropping to the back of the peloton, calling up the car, having a chat, then taking that information back up the chain. And personally, I was much more of a fan of it because it meant that a team had to be cohesive. They didn't just have to be physically good. They had to do a huge amount of research and just look after each other properly. Spectacular sunflower fields here.
Absolutely wonderful, aren't they? And we are coming up to the Roque St Christophe, Monsieur Boardman. And the Roque St Christophe is an astonishing place. So during the first millennium, so over 1,000 years, the Vikings kept raiding this part of France. And this extraordinary natural phenomenon here, this side of the rock, was used as a defence. So 5 different defensive forts were built in this rock side to defend this valley against principally the Vikings. But also, I mean, because of the way it is and where it is, for hundreds of years, this was used as a refuge in times of war for the local populations during the 100 Years' War, in particular. Look
Quite
at that.
remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
It's the I happen to know, actually, because it's another passion of mine, there's an awful lot of good cave diving around here. Very, very popular cave diving spot, famous around the world for the limestone caverns.
Why would anybody want to do that? You've done that, haven't you? You like all that nonsense. It strikes me as claustrophobic, dangerous, and downright unpleasant.
Well, not so much dangerous, because you just follow the rules, but there's some of the underwater architecture is quite incredible. You see things on this kind of scale, it isn't necessarily squeezing through holes.
Yeah.
suspended underwater and that no human eye has ever seen before. It's quite something. Doesn't match what you can get in Mexico, but very popular and world-renowned, the Dordogne, for underwater diving. Underwater diving as opposed to overwater diving in in the caves in this region.
It's also very, very famous for the artwork that was been discovered on the side of some of these caves as well, going back, what, 10,000 years, some of it, if not earlier.
There can't be many sporting events, can there, when you can actually, during the course of the event itself, you're actually looking at architecture, natural phenomena, geology, and high-speed descent on a bicycle, all mixed in, and it works. Somehow it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll get back to the racing in a second, but just to complete your thought about caves, Chris, I was lucky enough to be working on the Italian stage race in spring, Tirreno Adriatico. I don't know if you ever raced that, but it passes.
I don't know if it did, actually.
It passes across the Italian peninsula over some very, very mountainous territory, and we had a day off actually because the stage was cancelled. So we visited some local caves there. I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head. I'll try and find out. That were only discovered in the 1980s, when a couple of kids playing on the hillside kind of lost their footing and a hole appeared underneath them, and they dropped a stone down this hole, and it was kind of like 10 seconds before it hit the bottom. And then when they opened it up properly, the first of a series of caverns is so vast it could fit the entirety of Notre Dame Cathedral inside it 3 or 4 times over. It's ridiculous. And stalactites and stalagmites that date back, I mean, hundreds of millions of years and grow at, what was it, 1 millimetre a year or something like that? Just bonkers.
I have never seen this structure before, and I think that's probably the beauty of the Tour de France, is you get to see parts of this country that you have never had the opportunity to come across, and that is an amazing structure.
Yes, indeed. All part of the rich tapestry of the Tour de France, as you'll be well aware, and also a joy of the extended live coverage, intégrale, as they call it in French television terms. And it does give us the opportunity, when the race is a little bit sleepy, to enjoy scenes like this as we snake along the banks of the Dordogne and enjoy France celebrating itself. That is part of the Tour de France too. All right, less than 117 kilometres to go. The 2 men up the road have got 5.5 minutes. That's pretty much all that they have been allowed. The sprinters teams, all with riders at the front, a bunch sprint, pretty much a certainty. We'll get back to live race pictures very shortly, but if we did that straight away, I mean, you'd miss this astonishing sight. The House of Raignac, according to my guidebook, strange castle, seemingly small, yet in reality much larger, because behind there are a whole series of furnished rooms, 12 fire pieces, a dining room, kitchen, bedrooms, chapel, dungeons and a cellar, and fascinatingly, an exhibition on the theme of torture and capital punishment. Well, that's a place,
It's hard
isn't
to know
it?
what to say to that, really. Imagine how you describe that in an estate agent's window.
Yeah.
In need of some repair, shared garage with troglodyte family.
It was inhabited right up into the 20th century and opened its doors to visitors in 2006. Get along and have a look at that if you're in this neck of the woods. So 5:28, and that's the advantage that they've been given them. They're not going to be allowed any more slack than that. The peloton have these 2 riders firmly where they want them, Offrido and Jesper. It's one of the features of modern racing. We briefly, on the other side, Chris, just touched on race radios and how that affects races. I think we both sing from the same hymn sheet on that, don't we? I remember having a discussion with you about this in the past. Race radios, power meters, get rid of them. I mean, I can't really see much argument in favour.
Well, I was accused the other day on Twitter of being somewhat hypocritical when I was saying that, you know, wheels or all the different designs and disc brakes, just let nature take its course, and then conversely saying power meters, get rid of them, you know, which was a valid point, to be honest. And I think what I'm saying is I'm a fan of interesting racing, and where technology helps, great, and where it doesn't, stop it, because we are ultimately an entertainment business. That's what we are. People
Correct.
enjoy the spectacle of sport, and part of the drama is the mishaps. There's no getting away from that. So when we sanitize it and when we clean it up and make it, you know, okay, well, somebody's had a problem, let's stop racing, or somebody in a car can say, right, there's a crosswind round the corner, this is where you need to be, or this is what your gap is, you need to go harder or slower. That doesn't make better racing for me, and I think we should be mindful of that at all times, that let people enjoy the raw spectacle that it is, and all the faults and problems and hard luck stories could be part of the story.
Which brings us nicely on again to the yellow jersey etiquette discussion. That it's funny, isn't it? Sometimes when you get a really dramatic incident like that, people's first reaction is one thing. 24 hours later, you've kind of internalised it and thought about the wider consequences. And actually, the people reach kind of like slightly different conclusions a little bit further down the timeline, don't they?
And I think people don't realise. We ultimately go, "Oh, it's one of the unwritten rules." Well, you know, these unwritten rules.
The clues in that word unwritten.
It is, and they're also very, very new. You know, go back 20, 30 years, and this didn't happen. You know, if you had a problem, people just cracked on with the racing, and so it's just snuck in somewhere in the last decade or so that these are the things we do and we don't do, and I'm not sure how they got in, but I think it's about time we threw them out again. Because
ultimately, what bit of rider and bicycle have to get to the finish line first doesn't apply. I mean, you know, you're having I think you said at the top of the live show, having a reliable bike is surely part of it. I mean, it's man and bike, isn't it?
It would change things, and we've got some more features. I don't think they've gone out yet, so I don't want to steal my own thunder, but I'm going to because there's that much time to fill. But all of these riders here are using tubular tyres, because they're slightly better rolling resistance. But not one person in that peloton there has gone out to see by how much. And I can tell you the difference between a tubular tyre and a tubeless is very, very small. With a tubeless tyre, you can put 20, 30 grams of sealant in there, and you can effectively never puncture in the Tour de France. You know, there are instances you could have really bad luck and slash a tyre, but nobody ever does that. So you could never puncture in the Tour, and the energy cost of that would be around about 1 watt. And yet nobody does it because they've not looked at the facts. And you wouldn't have to have a lot of those problems. And if you could be attacked at any point, then you would be looking at all of these elements to make your machine as robust and reliable as possible, because you could lose a race as a result of it. You know, there's going to be no neutralisation while you sort yourself out.
Yeah. Oh, David Miller's come back in to join in the discussion as well. Get his thoughts as well, that'd be good. Our colleague Matt Rendell, when we were discussing the yellow jersey incident the other day, he made quite a good point. He's talking about when you attack riders, when it's not a mechanical issue, it's actually just a physical issue. So if you, for example, identify that, let's say, Alberto Contador is suffering from a chest infection, a respiratory problem, he's feeling a bit weak on the bike, you exploit that weakness, you attack him, you make him suffer even more. So with that in mind, then you go back to what happened at the Giro d'Italia, where Tom Dumoulin could have lost the race because he needed to, what's the polite way of saying it? He needed to visit the toilet.
Yeah, I was going to say it then. I'm glad you just stepped in.
Quite urgently. So the one is considered to be legitimate. You can attack someone who's got a cold. The other one isn't legitimate. You can attack someone. So people are drawing a moral difference between gastrointestinal problems and respiratory tract problems.
But
that's extraordinary.
Like in all workplaces, there's peer pressure, and to an extent, it's very subtle bullying. So you can change the behaviour. So Aru, for example, attacked, and everybody behind him said, "No, we're not working, that's wrong." And then he's faced with this judgment then, well, there's actually nothing to stop me, there's nothing in the rules, but all these people really don't want me to do it. And so he caved into peer pressure. Is that the way we want this sport to go?
That's very true. And David, it's something we were talking about just we came on air. We wondered whether what happened to Aru on the mountain might have then had consequences further down the line when they were chasing down Romain Bardet.
Yeah, I think it was an instinctive move by Aru, which is a purely racing move. He suddenly saw a moment of weakness from Chris Froome, and happened to be mechanical, because I think that's what it is, a moment of weakness, whether it's mechanical or physical. And he just jumped on it. I personally don't think it was a very lucid moment. It was very instinctive. We see the true Aru. What you probably should have done was just say, told Fuglsang, start riding hard. So it's become it's a sort of secondary. No one would question that. It was the violence of that attack. It seemed very. It wasn't right. You know, it's like it wasn't very clever.
It looked wrong.
It looked wrong. And what you should have done was told Fuglsang, right, go. Don't attack. Ride as hard as you can. And then that would have been what to do. And then let Fuglsang destroy himself, make it incredibly hard for Team Sky and Chris Froome to get on, whittle down that group, get it racing, and then attack off that.
So, but yeah, that's interesting because you're now drawing
It's
a moral.
exhausting to have to navigate the moral maze before you even attack on a bike, isn't it? It really is.
But honestly, if
But
you're
you're drawing a
position,
difference between how it looks
it's
essentially.
aesthetics, yeah, and it's the point, the opinion, and the effect that has on people. Exactly what Chris says. Your peers know you've just done something wrong. You're profiting off that moment.
Yeah.
You personally, when it was a bad tactical move, he was sitting at the back of the group. He still had a teammate left. Team Sky still had 2 or 3 riders. What he should have done was put his teammate on and taken over, because what would happen is the moment the yellow jerseys dropped, then Team Sky will stop riding, so that stalls that group. So it's your complete right to keep the momentum going, because you're trying to bring back Barguil, you say you're chasing the stage, you're trying to distance riders, so you then put your team on the front and you slam it, and you do exactly what Team Sky were doing. So you're just taking over their job. It's their job then to get back to you. What Aru did was just a stupid move, because everybody was like, no, we're all on TV across the world, and this is going to look really bad for our image.
That's not the way we want to go, is it, really?
Yeah.
You know,
And that's it. And it
want to
is
see a new rule that says you must contest the racing at all times, or something.
Like in horse racing, you can get penalised for being a non-trier.
And you have to remember as well, for many of the riders, for many of us, you're not just judged on your results. You're judged on your image and your brand. Now, if you're seen as profiting off somebody's misfortune, because that's what it is, as aggressively, your brand is not good. And nobody likes somebody who does nasty things, even if racing. So everyone's like, oh, there's no unwritten rules. Yeah, there are unwritten rules, because there's unwritten rules in life as well about how we behave.
Yeah.
It's called being
Civilization.
civilized. Exactly. And the
We don't
peloton
want civilization, we want racing.
and the peloton is a civilization. And you race together, not just at Tour de France, you race every single day, year in, year out.
That's almost another point, isn't it? And it's a valid one, that you have to remember all the time that next time this happens to me, I have to be careful that treat others as you would be treated yourself.
Exactly.
Simple as that, really. So that's why people don't attack through the feed, because everyone's got to eat.
So then they hit they come off the descent, and then they're in that little 5-man group trying to get across to the leader, and there are 2 Astana riders, Fuglsang and Aru, and they've come under a bit of tactical criticism from people saying, why did you've isolated the leader, now you do a 1-2, you attack, and then you counter-attack and you attack. Why didn't that happen? Why did they work with Froome? Well, maybe in the back of Aru's mind, what happened to him on the climb figured in his thinking that I can't attack Froome. I mean, I can't do it again because of how it looks.
I think he'd have that sense, and he'd had enough time. Once it happened, he realised all the other leaders, because all the number ones, if you like, came up to him. Even Quintana just jumped on him instinctively as well, but then refused to ride. And then everyone comes up and spreads themselves across the road, just going, no, can't do that. And
I think they all jumped on and were really hoping he kept going, so they had someone to blame, to be honest.
But it's, which is why it was a terrible tactic, because that's what was going to happen. He still had Fuglsang left, so then Fuglsang jumps off. No one's going to be bothered about Fuglsang. Team Sky can then just chip that back. So basically, Astana were just riding like idiots, I think, and not only on the climb, but on the descent then afterwards. And Chris Froome then just reiterated his patron-like role and boss as yellow jersey can. Got to the bottom and just looked at them and did the old hand spin signal as if we start riding, and everyone's like, okay. And it's maybe they should have Astana. It's Fuglsang. Aru should have said, look, Fuglsang will ride. I'm not going to ride, and just sat on the back and got ready to jump.
I'd have just not ridden full stop.
I'm with you. I would have just not ridden. Put it all on Chris Froome. He's the yellow jersey. In that situation, it's up to the yellow jersey to close it down.
Because that's precisely what the yellow jersey gets to do in all of the situations is, well, you're losing your position, it's up to you to chase. Well, that was him losing his position.
Yes.
And you could have legitimately made it down to him.
And that's the only way. We see it all the time, and that's why it takes a very clever bike rider and quite a brave and bike rider to do that. And we see it also in the finish. The best tactical ones they're willing to lose. And you have to be willing to lose in order to win, if you like, in many ways, as weird as that sounds.
Well, it's not with if you want to win the Tour now, then you have to take risks that could see you losing any place on a podium. But that's the only way you're going to get onto the top step.
And that's what they should have done yesterday.
They fall into the trap of defending seconds and thirds, and then it's all over.
Because remember, Romain Bardet finished second in the Tour de France last year.
Yes.
He was up the road. He was riding himself close to that's beautiful, Chateau.
Yeah, you've got to get into that.
We've got to get that.
That's
one.
a top
that's
bit
fantastic.
Top bit of chateau, that.
Well, it's a medieval castrum. That's the technical term for that kind of castle.
A castrum.
A castrum, yeah. Don't ask me exactly. But, David, I wonder what century it dates back to in terms of its establishment. Have a little think.
I'm going to go for 12th century.
Do you know, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Amazing.
originally, a wooden tower was built on this rocky outcrop and then replaced by what you're looking at there, the stone keep, topped with machicolations.
It's because they didn't have tellies, isn't it?
What?
What they've built amazing
Well,
things
you've
like
got nothing
that.
else to do, have you? So get your trowel out and start building.
Build a castle.
The one on the other side of the valley tried to outdo them.
Yeah.
That's better. It's got a roof and everything. No, it's beautiful.
But I do think that going back to the race on Sunday, I agree with Chris that if you're in that situation, Romain Bardet, who was second in the Tour last year, is a legit possible winner of the overall. That's all in Chris Froome's. It's Chris Froome's responsibility to bring that back. And the only way you can hope to beat him is call his bluff. Because we know Chris Froome, how he rides as well. He will ride. He's strong enough to do it. He'll do a ride that's tactical, that will take him as close to catching Romain Bardet on the line as possible. But do that and then attack him when you can. And they've got two riders. You do two ups. Two-up attacks.
It's status, though, that Froome's status is something else now, isn't it? I mean, because that almost subliminally, subconsciously, he's got the kind of peloton in some sort of psychological checkmate, hasn't he, at the moment? And that's how it feels.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the yellow jersey normally has that anyway, but he's a three-time Tour de France winner. We saw the way he raced last year, which very few of us have ever seen somebody who's going to do everything he can to win. That's terrifying. They know how hardcore he is. And he doesn't care how he looks. I mean, he'll run up Mont Ventoux if he has to. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Which was against the rules, but not.
Yeah, which was against the rules.
Didn't have a spike.
So he's got that status. But what you should do is understand that he does want to win that much. So go on, gamble it. You know he's going to try. He won't let this go. So put it all in his, into the ball in his side of court.
Well, let's hope they've had a chat.
Listen, we could talk all day about this, and the good thing is we're going to be able to, because there's not much going on the bike race at the moment. The advantage has come down to close to 5 minutes. Other than that, though, it's as you were on the road to Bergerac. Welcome back. Less than 100 kilometres now to run, and the time gap has come down to under 5 minutes. So the breakaway pairing are just easing up a little bit, and the peloton continuing at the same pace with the same constellation of riders have just shaved off the best part of 30 seconds on their advantage. Julien Vermont in the blue, the rider on the front is Lars Bak from Lotto Soudal, then Thiago Machado, and those three teams are riding. Then Marcus Burkhardt, interestingly, from Border Hansgrohe towards the front. Well, there we go. That is the situation at the peloton, and all the other GC teams not far behind the front of the peloton in groupings. You can see the colours flying through the screen there. They're all riding together in the modern way. Chris, you have been out on your bike this morning, and you've had a sequence of little finish line pieces to do for our coverage, which have been becoming increasingly difficult because they've been a bit featureless, haven't they? Featureless features.
They've been cunningly straight.
However,
and,
today
that's not the case. It's quite an interesting little finish. Mischievous would be a kind way to put it, actually.
Now, Matt Rendell suggested to me over lunch that actually you're mispronouncing that word.
Mischievous?
Yeah.
Mischievous.
Mischievous. What do you say, David?
I say mischievous.
We both say mischievous.
Well, I like to mix it up, you know, just mix it up.
Go on. Stick with what you know. Mischievous.
OK. Mischievous. Mischievous.
Yep.
Have you ever known anybody that was achievous? It's mischievous. Anyway, yeah, there's two nasty bends inside the last minute of racing. The last one comes just on 500 metres to go. A sharp left-hander onto quite a narrow road. You can see the finish in the distance. And it changes this entire stage, to be honest. That one corner is absolutely critical. And putting one that late is mischievous.
Yeah, and not to say quite dangerous.
Well, I'll be very surprised if there's not an incident on that corner, because it's so critical to getting round it first. Somebody like Edvard Boasson-Hagen, if they went for a long one, as they have inadvertently a couple of times now, I think could really benefit from a finish like this. And everybody else knows that as well. So everybody needs to get around that corner in the top 5, and obviously the maths doesn't work out there if they want to go for the finish. There'll be about 30 seconds of racing left when they get around that corner.
So how many metres is that? How far
just on 500 metres.
500 metres to go.
Yeah, there's one just under a kilometre, 300 metres, and then another one.
You know, conventionally most sprinters normally talk about the ideal sort of drop-off point being 200 metres to go. So it would be the duty of the last lead-out man for all the sprinters to take them through that corner.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And so you want to go around that corner in second or third place, really,
Yeah.
and just hit it, because you've also have that every rider in turn, it's like a traffic jam on a motorway, gets a little bit more, slowed down a little bit more, and then they've got to re-accelerate on the other side. So the people going first, second and third around that corner don't have to slow down. Everybody else does. And when you go into absolute maximum after it, there is no room to recover or to get back on terms. So positioning is just everything today. Nasty, very nasty. Normally, I mean, the bends and twists can actually help the sprinters because it thins out the peloton and pins everybody in place, and so they've got room to work. But when you put them this late, it's so black and white. You must be round it in the first three or four. Then, you know, it's going to make it dangerous. Well, that's all I've got to say on the matter.
Well, is it, given what we know of, that's not good enough, because we still have a little bit more time to fill here, Chris.
Okay.
So you can't just cop out like that. So given what we know about the sprinters and the way that they, you know, obviously we've seen them on the roads of the Tour de France so many years now, these big names, is it possible to say who it suits or not?
Well, it suits the team that gets together,
Yeah.
and out of 4 sprints, Quick Step, I've got it right once. So, you know, they are the obvious team, but because of the diminished sprinter ranks at the moment, there's less people to actually keep it together to make sure it is a sprint in the end anyway. So you might have to use up a lot of your men just keeping control of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they can't do both, you know, you've got to choose. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how people spend the resources today.
Well,
a saddle adjustment here.
Yeah, there's a rider spending his resources a little bit further up the road. I'm glad we have framed out here as...
Very difficult to adjust these little wedge adjusters, so you can't undo it a bit. You get some stiction. You could see him hitting the saddle there, using a torque spanner for speed, which is quite clever. But some of these aero bikes are not the easiest to adjust on the fly.
What was it, so kit-wise, did you see the BMC bikes have got a kind of quick fix situation just in case Richie Porte needs a bike borrowing? Did you see that? You're looking blankly at me.
Well, they did have that, so they won't have it now, I presume.
Well,
yeah,
that's true, yes, yeah.
That's quite a clever
Explain that,
idea.
what was it, David?
It was, they had a, I think it was for, I can't remember the name of the rider, but in order, if Richie Porte found himself in dire straits in the late parts of the stage, he had a teammate who could hand over his bike and adjust the saddle quickly.
A dropper saddle.
A dropper, so like mountain bike.
Post, yeah.
Right. The Puymartin Castle, 13th century castle.
Did you just say sandcastle?
No, I said a 13th century castle.
Oh, right.
Sandcastle.
So this is a good one about this place. It has the legend of the White Lady, which retraces the life of Teresa de Saint Clair, who was imprisoned in the castle's northern tower by her jealous husband. She died there and was walled up.
No.
Her ghost is said to have appeared on
Sounds
several
smelly.
occasions.
Well, that rider who did just drop back there was Eyzies De Christophe, who needed his saddle adjusting and that little bit of help. There you go. The legend of the White Lady. Wouldn't want to spend the night there with her.
I don't
around the
think
place.
I've ever seen the Tour de France with so many chateaux packed
No,
into
this is
such a
amazing.
small area.
And this whole area, because it was once owned by England, this was built on the border between France and England. So once upon a time, a very long time ago, we're talking the 1200s, this was the border between France and England, because Aquitaine, which was the whole southwest of France, was Aquitaine. And Eleanor d'Aquitaine was the queen, and this was the beginning of the 100 Years' War to defending that piece of land. Large plot of land.
And
Maybe they wanted to keep it because of all the chateaux.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it is very chateau-y today, particularly chateau-y.
Everyone's
You're
got
absolutely
one.
right.
Probably pick one up cheap here.
Talk about belonging to England. I mentioned it earlier, but in case you missed it, tomorrow's stage start, Eyzies has the highest concentration of British nationals anywhere in France living there. 75%. 75% of the inhabitants of Eyzies are Brits. And that is the Alfredo inspiration there, his family, inspiring him on. He's just happy to be on the Tour de France, Johan Alfredo. He was attacked on a training ride. He lives and trains near Paris, actually, which is unusual for cyclists, and he was on a training ride, and he was attacked by somebody. I don't know what the motivation was, whether it was a stranger or something else.
Road
but he
rage,
was,
I think.
yeah, road rage incident. An attack with a baseball bat and a box cutter, left with facial injuries and really beaten up. 30 years of age, Johan Alfredo, and the rider on his wheel, Elie Gesbert, is from Saint-Brieuc, Chris, in Brittany.
I
that
know
you know very well.
It's got a lovely hospital.
Remind
Lovely
me
little
what,
emergency unit there.
what happened to you in Saint-Brieuc and when?
I fell off my bicycle and broke things.
Shouldn't be laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing.
It's just a bit cruel, but
Yeah.
I was just going with it. Yeah, I broke my ankle in 6 places and my arm, and I had my nose broken by the following car, which couldn't stop in the wet conditions. And then I had a lovely summer holiday.
It gets funnier and funnier, doesn't it?
It does. I'll tell you what, David, you remember in 1994 going out to the side of the road and watching Chris Boardman race in Britain.
I do, yeah. First time I saw the Tour de France.
This is a great story. What?
Yeah.
So tell it from
Don't
your
build the old-
perspective. From your, it is. It's fun. From your perspective, what do you remember of watching Chris Boardman race on that stage?
The fact there was a breakaway of 2 riders, I think it was, maybe 2 or 1, I can't remember. But anyway, they came in, there's a finishing circuit into Brighton, and there was a little hill in it. And
We don't need to talk about
I
this.
got there hours and hours before, and I was standing at the barriers, like I see cycling fans do now, thinking they're mad, but I can empathise because that was once me. And eventually the race came by, and these 2 riders came by, and the peloton was about 4 minutes behind. And so those 2 riders were going for the win. But there was 1 lap, they went over a little hill and came back. And coming in the second time, Chris Boardman had attacked on that little hill, left the peloton, and was coming by in what appeared to be a beautiful move of panache to entertain the British public, and inspired me massively about the folly of cycling. So I thought, wow, isn't Chris Boardman incredible? He's doing that for us. And a few weeks ago, I found out that wasn't the case.
So you thought flamboyance, panache, courage, respect to the race, this wonderful attack, suicidal attack, but he's doing it for us.
I've got to go now.
Right.
Being called away
Chris, what was
somewhere else.
What was the reality of that attack?
I didn't know there's a break at the race. Yeah.
You thought you were attacking for the win.
I'm glad I came in here. Chris Boardman broke himself. Chris Boardman thought he was going to win a stage.
Yeah, so that's another dream shattered. So
We've actually seen that on
Thank
this
you for
race.
doing
I'm trying
it
to think who it
then,
was. And we've actually seen it in this race once. I'm trying to think who it was now, a few days ago. We had someone in a similar situation. But sometimes when you're in the bunch, pre-radios, and it's tightly packed, and you get to the front and there's a lead vehicle there, you don't necessarily know there's something gone away. You don't.
No, it does happen. It happens remarkably often. I remember when Adam Yates won the San Sebastian Classic a couple of years ago. He crossed the line first in a solo to the win, but in the final kilometre, in the final 100 metres, he was on the radio back to his team car, just checking that there wasn't a break further up the road before he celebrated, because the last thing he wanted to do was do the awkward.
It is the last thing.
Oh no, I haven't won.
It is the last thing you would want to do.
Warren Buggy could be forgiven for doing it the other day, because he genuinely thought he'd won, and it looked like he had won, and he was told that he had won by France Télévisions, who then rather awkwardly told him he hadn't won mid-interview. That was just desperate. Yeah, poor old Warren Buggy.
I've seen Ryder Hesjedar do it in Canada. That was one of his finest moments as well, Tour of Alberta.
Oh well.
And on that note, I think I'll leave you.
Thank you very much, Chris. You can have a break. After the break, we'll be going back to Matt Smith and Tom Pidcock. In the meantime, though, 93 odd kilometres left and 4 minutes and 17 seconds the advantage. Welcome back to a sleepy day on the Tour de France, stage 10. There are 4 bowls remaining in the over, and England are 248 for 6. It's got that kind of test match feel about it today. And with that in mind, let's get back to Matt Smith and Tom Pidcock in London.
Thank you very much, Ned. Yes, I'll take that. We're actually looking at pictures of the town, I think, of Sarlat, La Canada, which is said to have the highest density of listed monuments in the world. If you've seen a French-based period drama, it would have been shot there. Ridley Scott, Luc Besson, many famous directors have filmed there. It's also known as Truffle Central, with a market every Saturday. It doesn't get much more French, or at least Dordogne, France, than that. If you've been listening and watching earlier, you'll be aware that it's kind of standard procedure in terms of the peloton chasing a small breakaway, 2 today, and it's quick step at the front of the peloton, as often is the case. There's a bunch sprint finish to come, but the gap down from about 5 minutes to just under 4, with 88 or so kilometres to go. Tom Pidcock, young rider of extreme promise, has been alongside me today. Delighted to say. We've got a little bit more time to chat, Tom. We should, in mentioning obviously your already big prowess in cyclocross, mention that in terms of road cycling, you've already had a Tour Series win against the professional riders, didn't you? Earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yeah. at Durham. Yeah, up the big cobble climb.
So you do know the cobbles, and how was that?
Yeah, it was, well, obviously it was hard.
Yeah.
It was, as well, it was very wet and slippy.
I can imagine,
the bottom corner on TV, it's nothing like what it is in real life. It's like off camber. It's like riding on ice, basically.
Well done for that. That must have given you a lot of confidence as a young rider. And whilst we're on cobbles, that Tour Series win, by the way, is on ITV, as I'm sure you know. But whilst we're on cobbles, lots have been in touch to correct me that Hovis Hill advert I referred to earlier. Obviously, the hill's in Dorset, not Yorkshire. I was just testing. Next question from Tom Vaux or Vo. Where is your favourite location to ride? Have you got a spot that you love to go back to again and again, if you can?
Yorkshire, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah. For a Yorkshireman, you can't say anything but Yorkshire, can you?
No.
You'd be abused.
Yes. Is there a particular spot in Yorkshire that you would always by choice use for a training ride, or
straight Cav Pav and back?
Straight Cav Pav and back.
Yeah. Cafe ride, 50 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Got a bit of everything in that ride. Bit of scenery, bit of hills, bit of.
There aren't any massive hills, you know. It's rolling, but yeah.
Okay. Enough to keep you interested.
Yeah, enough. Yeah. I've ridden that road. Yeah, many times on the club run when I was little, and then still now, and it doesn't get boring.
And with training in mind, also people getting in touch to ask about your training regime. Obviously, haven't quite turned 18 yet, so I'm sure there's lots of coaching you're being given. But what is there an average mileage to a training week? Is there an average week even for a young rider like you?
I think it depends on whether I'm racing or not. I think generally, 400, 500k a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be a mixture of road and turbo?
In the summer, generally just road.
Generally just get out there if you can.
Yeah, on training camps we do a lot more than that. Well, more hours.
Yeah.
With the track and stuff.
And within the week, so you do train on the track. I think you were telling me that earlier as well, using that. Not so much for track technique as just mileage, presumably.
Yeah,
just for your legs.
on the GB Academy, we do a lot of training on the velodrome, doing team pursuit and stuff. It just gives you leg speed and yeah.
And will you train? Presumably, you'll train partly on the cyclocross bike as well as the road bike, will you?
No, I don't really train on the cross bike.
Don't you?
No, just train on a road bike.
Really?
Like in the winter, I didn't even keep my cross bikes.
So you literally just get on them to race?
Yeah.
Interesting. The gap's coming down, as you can see, 3.5 now, those two being slowly whittled in because there's more interest to come before this stage is done. I know it's been one of those long and slow days, as Ned pointed out, with the Fredo and Jesper off the front, but there will be 2 Category 4 climbs and an intermediate sprint, as well as the stage finish to come. Also a question from Parentini TT. Fast forward, if you can, from the tender age of 17 to the end of your racing career. What race win on your Palmares would be the highlight? What's the biggest long-term goal, if you have one?
Either Elite World title or Elite Paris-Roubaix.
Okay, so you're not looking quite as far ahead as one of these.
What, the Tour de France overall? Nah, I'm not sure. Don't know. It might not be a climber, so.
Right. So you're thinking maybe more of a classics type, maybe Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah. Although I might be too small to win Paris-Roubaix, but never say never.
Well, you've won the junior. Who says you can't win the senior?
Yeah.
And he might grow. He might not have finished yet. You keep eating those sandwiches. He's just polished off Asani in good order, I can tell you that for sure. Who's going to win this year's Tour, by the way, before we let you go? Froome?
Yeah.
No doubt.
No doubt. He'll win this, yeah.
And who's going to win today?
I think it would be easy to say Kittel won it, so I'm going to say Bosenhagen.
Bosenhagen, the Dimension Data rider who got so close to Kittel the other day against much expectation. Okay, we're nearly done with Tom Pidcock. Delighted to have you along for the chat today, and I wish you well with what's left of this season and the many seasons you have ahead of you. It's been a delight to have you along for a chat today. Fascinating insight from a young rider. They come thick and fast, though, the riders, in our conversation part of the commentary. As you can see, tomorrow, Joe Rouselshand is with me to chat through all things, well, obviously Tour de France, Olympic champion, of course, off to L'Etape, and to watch La Course at this year's Tour de France. We'll get her thoughts on that. Women's cycling, I know she's big on equal pay. That will be something we'll get our teeth into tomorrow. So all of that with Jo before she leaves for France. And as a hand back, I think, to David and Ned. David, of course, who these days lives in Girona. Tom, you're, I think, planning to spend the winter in Girona, aren't you?
Yeah.
Hopefully avoiding David at all costs.
Yeah, well, yeah. Hopefully going out there, yeah. Better. Winter almost crapped me this year, so, yeah.
Well, you think
some
last
more
winter
sun
was hard.
and, you know, if I didn't have, like, my 2 training partners, Will and Gavin, I don't know how I would have coped in Britain with the rain and... Yeah.
Well, you're going to spend a lot of time in Belgium, so get used to the rain. Not raining, I'm delighted to say, in the Dordogne, but yeah, there you go, David. Someone to try and catch around Girona this winter, Tom Pidcock.
Yeah, hi Tom. We've never met, but I'm sure cross paths. Girona's an amazing place for cyclists. So I think you've made the right choice there. There's no doubt about that.
How many riders actually base themselves in Girona now? Because you were one of the very first, weren't you? But now it seems like dozens and dozens of them live there.
The unofficial number is around 100 during the season.
Wow.
So that's all categories. That's all men, women, amateurs, professional, all different standards of professionals. So yeah, it has become the professional cycling hub of the world, really.
And where are the training roads? I mean, do you get out in the Pyrenees as far as that? So how far from Girona to the Pyrenees, or do you not need to?
I think people are all surprised by Girona. Everyone has a sort of a fixed idea, preconception of what Spain's like. Girona's quite for the majority of the year a very green place, and it's rolling hills. And I guess one of the reasons that professional cyclists have chosen it is the fact that there is a diversity of terrain. You have the option of going on flat roads. You have hilly, you can get into mountains within an hour. I mean, when I say mountains, they're the sporadic mountains. It's not the full Pyrenean range, which is actually about 100 miles away, 180 k's away. The weather's great, the roads are beautiful, there's not much traffic. So the quality of life there is great, there's airports nearby. So it ticks all the boxes that a professional cyclist requires to be ticked. And it's a bit of a cross between the south of France and Tuscany and Spain. It's a combination of all three. Beautiful place.
And do you still get out much? I mean, on the bike, and if so, do you ever sort of ride with the old training partners who are still racing?
Not really. Dan Martin keeps inviting me, and I keep managing not to go, which is more tactical than anything else, because
he's quite fast.
Yeah. Even his recovery rides probably terrify me. Actually, no, Dan's recovery rides are very gentle. No, oddly, I travel a lot, and when I'm home, I have 3 little kids, 5, 4, and 1, and it's my turn to help my wife with the kids, and cycling seems a bit too luxurious, but too much of a treat. I just go and do half-an-hour runs and do what's more time effective, and very occasionally ride my bike. Now the weather's good. I'm definitely a fair weather cyclist now, and the good thing is there are always guys to go riding with, and so yeah, and where I live is perfect. One of my favourite cycling loops in the world is around my house, so I'm very fortunate to have that on my doorstep.
And largely the Girona kind of foreign legion tends to be the Americans, the Brits increasingly, and the Australians have all based themselves there. Do they embrace Catalan culture, and are they welcome? And does it all kind of knit together seamlessly?
Like anything, it's a mixture. Everyone's different. Some people embrace it more than others. I think one of the ironies is that the more there are, as Phil Gilbert having a chat with Chris Froome. 2 Monaco residents. Yeah, 2 Monaco residents, there you go. Not Girona.
Nope. Monaco has certain advantages, doesn't it?
Tact mainly.
You said it. Okay, fair enough.
No, it's one of those things with Girona, and the fact that there's such a community now there. And there's more and more do spend the whole year there, but a lot just use it as a seasonal training base. They don't really mix too much in with the local culture, because they are only there for brief visits, and when they are, they're fairly locked down. But there's a certain section of that community that does spend time over the winters and does get more embedded. And it is what it's not like the old days where you had to completely embed yourself in everything about the culture in order to survive. Now, with the internet, with the bigger communities, it's a lot easier to carry on with your own culture. Sure. Arguable whether that's right or not.
The bridge dates back to the late 19th century. The Vitrac Bridge survived the Second World War intact, with 5 identical arches. being its hallmark. So we've got a bit of a race on here, potentially. Clutching at straws slightly, because I'm not sure how keenly this will be contested between these two riders on the first of two categorised climbs of the day, the Côte de Domme. 3.5 kilometres in length, an average gradient of, get this, 3.3%. That's barely a hill.
That really is clutching at straws.
Yeah.
Oh, that's, sorry, I was just thinking something else appeared on the Richie Port crash. Just appeared on the France TV screen that we have in our commentary.
Right.
Still instinctively made me scream.
Oh, it was ghastly, wasn't it? Absolutely ghastly.
But yeah, 3.5 Ks at 3 Ks. It's not really much of a climb. That's a false flat.
Yeah. Well, neither of the riders have picked up any King of the Mountains points so far. The man who has the polka dot jersey has 60 points. That's Warren Barguil, the second-place rider in that competition. Primoz Roglic has 30 points. It'll be interesting to see what Barguil does in terms of defending it. He's got a healthy lead, so he's very much the favourite to take the jersey all the way to Paris. And he's exactly the right kind of rider to do that as well, because he's not riding a GC race. He can get himself in breakaways, and probably one big day out in the Pyrenees might just almost seal it for him.
Almost. It's a bit of a psychological game as well, because if you are dominant in these early big mountain stages, you almost kill the battle and people will give up even trying. So it's in his interest on that next big mountain stage to really attack it, to get out there again, score as many points as he can, and he might be able to kill the competition quite early on.
Yeah. Last year's King of the Mountains is no longer on the race. He announced yesterday that he would not be taking any further part, having fallen very heavily on stage 9. And that's Rafa Majka from Border Hansgrohe. He was looking quite good as well before he had that crash and lost a lot of time. So that's a double disappointment for the two twin ambitions of Border Hansgrohe. Peter Sagan, of course, DQ'd and sent home in somewhat controversial circumstances, and Rafa Majka not taking to the start today. And the other Sagan also didn't finish all day in time on stage 9. So no Sagans left at all now. It's quite interesting to see Markus Burghardt, the German national champion who rides for Border Hansgrohe. We've seen repeatedly from the front of the peloton, we've seen him riding. Border Hansgrohe are contributing to the chase. Let's see if he's there now. Yeah, you can just see him in 4th position. Big figure with a white jersey and the German national colours on his helmet. There he is with the German national colours as well on his bands on his chest. And the reason they're doing that is, I think, to look after Rüdiger Selig, the German deputy sprinter in the Border Hansgrohe team. Peter Sagan would have been obviously their first choice sprinter, but Rüdiger Selig has done okay in the sprints so far, and they obviously believe that he can improve on his positions in the sprints. There are so many big name sprinters not here now. Mark Cavendish, Peter Sagan, Arnaud Démare, take them all out. All of those riders are stage winners and potential stage winners in what is a very flat Tour de France. So opportunity knocks for some of these riders, but they'll have to get past and dislodge Marcel Kittel, who would be, I don't know what the bookmakers are saying, but he would be really the very, very strong favourite again today.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen him going this well, not only in sprints, but he just appears to be very fit from that very first time trial where he was 9th, and then he's far from being one of the first drops in the mountains. He seems to be more towards the middle of the field, which is quite remarkable for him. So clearly his fitness is at its very highest level, hence why he has already won 3 stages. At the moment his job's getting easier and easier for him. So no Cavendish, no Sagan, no Démare. It's really, this is a dream situation. This is an opportunity for a green jersey,
yeah.
And it won't come along very often for him, with it being in the same generation as Peter Sagan.
Rüdiger Selig, the German sprinter for Border Hansgrohe, I was just telling you about, has actually finished 9th on stage 6, the first time he had to sprint in the absence of Sagan. And then the next day on stage 7, he finished 7th. So an improving rider and one to watch. And I think it's worth noting that Markus Burghardt has been sent to the front and is riding for Selig. So you have to consider Border Hansgrohe now as one of the sprinters' teams. Also interesting to see what Dan McClay can get up to. 3rd place on a stage of last year's Tour in the final week, and he's had an injury disrupted season, and he's just coming into his best form, you would imagine. Finished 14th into Liège, the first sprinter stage, and then on stage 6 he finished 8th, and the following day on stage 7 he finished 10th. So 2 top 10s and a rider who's eminently capable of more than that. He has a rider in the breakaway though, so you won't see Fortuneo Oscaro doing any of the work on the front, because their man is up the road, and he's getting close now to the top of this climb. The Cat 4 Côte de Domme carries 1 King of the Mountains point. And who's going to want it? Oh, it's actually inside the city walls of the Domme.
That's the Porte des Tours, Bastide's main fortified entrance. This walls imprisoned 79th Templar between 1307 and 1318.
Oh, it's quite steep here. So there's your, where they get the 3% from. I think the rest was pretty flat. Yeah, a little ramp up to the finish line here. That's the summit of the climb. Elie Gesbert takes the point. And Johan Alfredo is more than happy for his young compatriots to take the point. And it continues to kick up until they get into the middle of the village, and then presumably it'll drop down again. Forecast is hotter as the week progresses now. Quite temperate yesterday. Drizzled with rain, and rained pretty hard in Bergerac at the finish line, but it's dry today and the skies are clearing. So that threat of rain that we had as they rolled out of Périgueux earlier on this afternoon has receded now, and it's going to be a dry race, I'm pretty sure of that. It's not hot enough and it's not humid enough to thunderstorm today, I don't think. Nairo Quintana fans by the side of the road with the Colombian flag. A common sight on the Tour de France these days. As indeed are Peter Sagan fans. The Slovakian flag has become a kind of perennial backdrop to the Tour de France, and they're still here in undiminished numbers, but they haven't got their big hero any longer to cheer on. How Dordogne is that? What a beautiful view. We rode out onto a similar little hill yesterday, south of Bergerac, and we had a similar vista to behold, with a French fighter jet wheeling through the sky and going through a few manoeuvres as well, just to add a bit of action to what is a beautiful part of the world. The Dordogne is looking absolutely stunning today. It really is sparkling. Beautiful race to admire from the sky, and we will have a race to admire on the tarmac fairly soon, because there will be a battle for intermediate sprint points at 57 kilometres when they hit Saint-Cyprien. That way, though, is a little further up the road still, some 15 kilometres away, so that gives us time to introduce Matt Rendell. And Matt, are you going to take us back in time again?
I am, Ned. And you, Mr. Miller, over there.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening.
Pay attention, David.
It is on days like this, Ned and Dave, that a man's thoughts turn naturally to the quiet struggle with the apparent meaninglessness of life. And to that stage from Périgueux to Bergerac in 1994, which didn't go all around the houses, over 178 kilometres, like today, what we are looking at, but around just a few of the houses. Because it was 64 kilometres long, a time trial, not a road stage, because it's all time trial-y round here, isn't it, really, the landscape?
Yes.
No, maybe it's not.
Yeah, no, well, fine,
it is?
whatever. Yep.
Go on, just say yes.
Okay.
And Miguel Indurain won it exactly 2 minutes ahead of Tony Rominger, who was second, and 5 minutes and 27 seconds ahead of...
Let me guess.
Go on.
Chris Boardman, was it?
Chris Boardman, who was fifth. Indurain, of course, won road stages in 89 and 90, didn't he? But only ever won prologues and time trials during his Tour-winning streak, 91 to 95. And another of the five-time Tour winners associated with this part of the world is Jacques Anquetil. And would you accompany me, even...
I'll come. I'll come. David might not.
Should we leave Dave here?
Yeah, we'll leave him here. I'll come with you.
Don't wander off, Dave, because when we're coming back...
I'll be here.
74.5 kilometre time.
I can't go anywhere else.
Carry on.
Is he still talking?
No. I'm going to turn his microphone off.
Bergerac to Périgueux. So, inverting today's stage, start and finish towns, the 61 Tour was one of a handful of tours with that peculiar characteristic currently exhibited by this year's edition, in that the yellow jersey was only ever worn by 2 riders and they were teammates. So it was that Henri Darrigade of France, the one who won stage 1 of the Tour 5 times, that Henri Darrigade, took the race lead overall after winning the sprint at the end of stage 1A on the morning of day 1, and then his national teammate Jacques Anquetil took the jersey by winning the time trial on stage 1B that afternoon and kept it all the way to the end. And if you do ever feel that the outcome of a Tour de France is just too predictable, think of 61. At the end of day 1, Anquetil led the GC by 4 minutes and 46 seconds.
Wow.
And his main rival, Charlie Gaul, was just under 8 minutes back after day 1. So, 2 days before the end of that tour, Anquetil dominated the final time trial of the race, 74.5 kilometres from Bergerac to Périgueux. Gaul was second at 3 minutes, or 2 minutes 59, which put him just over 10 minutes behind Anquetil in GC, with the Italian rider Guido Carlesi 4 seconds behind him. And the French writer Antoine Blondin, who's the sort of literary voice of French journalism on the Tour de France, he wrote this piece calling Anquetil Jacques le Conquérant, sort of facetiously comparing him with another Norman, William the Conqueror, and slating him for winning the Tour by nearly 12 minutes, saying, we all know that Anquetil set out intending to win the Tour, and he's won it, which is fine, but without leaving a tip, in the form of the crushing showcase performance that we were hoping to see, which only goes to show that you can't win when they won't let you win, even when you win. Anyway, if you want controversy, no better tour than the 61 race. 252.5 kilometres, the final stage of that race, Tour to Paris, in the pouring rain, and times were taken on the entry to the Parc des Princes Velodrome. Anquetil finished in a leading group of 9, a couple of minutes ahead of the main group, but Guido Carlesi, who was started the stakes 3 seconds behind Charlie Gaul, nicked back 5 seconds on the entrance to the Velodrome, which meant that he won. He was second in the Tour by 2 seconds, with Charlie Gaul third, and Anquetil, of course, nearly 13 minutes ahead. So imagine the controversy that would have been made of that today. And that is today's story. Thank you very much. Wakey, wakey.
Thanks, Matt. Get well, Richie. I'm sure a lot of people will be sending him best wishes as Richie Port watches on from a hospital bed. And another rider who's doing that at the moment is none other than Brian Robinson as well, who raced in that 1961 Tour de France and finished 53rd. He crashed on a ride in Yorkshire just the other day. He's fine, but he is recovering from scratches and bruises, Brian Robinson. And he is a total legend. And Brian, if you're watching, get well soon and stop falling off your bike, please. But carry on riding. So 68.5 kilometres to go, 2:38 the advantage for Jesper and for Offredo. And we do have an intermediate sprint. And it's only about 10 kilometres from here at Saint-Cyprien. And as we gaze down at yet another absolutely stunning garden. Look at that maze.
That's actually called the Jardin Remarquable.
Yeah, there's a few of them on this route today.
Covering 22 hectares. The park offers over 6 kilometres of shaded walks. 150,000 centuries. That doesn't make sense at all.
What doesn't make sense?
Just to pretend I didn't say that. Centuries-old hand-cut boxwood shrubs.
Yep.
It's just basically a beautiful garden, hence why it's called the Remarkable Garden.
I suppose one of the reasons, I'm going out on a limb here, David, because I'm pretty much out of my comfort zone here, but one of the reasons why strategically you were talking about Aquitaine having changed hands, and one of the reasons why there are so many chateaux here in the Dordogne Valley is because of the geography. These steep sides to the river valley, just perfect places for fortifications to defend territory, I guess.
That makes sense, yeah. Does make sense now.
Thank you.
This is it. The Chateau of Marquessac. Some late 17th, 18th century home.
6 kilometres of shaded walks as well, which you might need as the sun bursts through. There is rider number 1, the defending Tour de France champion, Chris Froome, in yellow. And he might just be in yellow all the way to Paris. And then that would be an echo of that 1961 Tour that Matt Rendell was just talking about, when Jacques Anquetil's team held the jersey, first with Darrigade and then Anquetil all the way to Paris.
This is good. The Beynac Castle. The castle was built to secure the valley in 1115 on a rocky outcrop. Through the marriage of Eleanor Aquitaine to the future King of England, Henry Plantagenet, this is in the 12th century, obviously, the castle passed over to England, as did all Aquitaine, while paying tribute to the Count of Toulouse, vassal of the King of France.
Wow. Absolutely
and this
gorgeous.
goes to what you were saying about the fact that the valley of the Dordogne, this castle was built to defend the valley, if you like.
So during the 100 Years' War, it was a French fortress, and the Dordogne formed the border between France and England. And the other side of the river during the 100 Years' War was English. In 1962, it was acquired by auction, and its owner, Lucien Grosso, undertook to restore it. And his wife has continued the work that he started. He passed away in 2008, but it has been restored to that state, and quite beautiful it is. All right, the race will start with an intermediate sprint just a little further up the road. Plenty to like about the Tour de France, as seen from the air today in the stunning Dordogne Valley. But, for a change, we've got a bike race to talk about now, because obviously we're expecting the big bunch sprint at the end of the stage, but we're approaching the intermediate sprint of the day at Saint-Cyprien. That's at 57 kilometres. This is the breakaway group. They're at 62.5, the pair of riders, and then 3 minutes later, the peloton will get to Saint-Cyprien, or 2 minutes 41 seconds later, I should say. And there will be 15 points available for the rider who finishes in 3rd place, because 1st and 2nd will clearly be taken by Offredo and Jesper. And then there'll have to be a battle. So because the breakaway is so small, they're forced into a position where Michael Matthews, in particular, sitting in 2nd place in the green jersey competition, and Marcel Kittel will be forced into sprinting here, David. We're going to see a race.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they have to. This green jersey competition is so open still. There's still a long way to go in this race, and it's an opportunity, as I said before, that very few of them will ever get again. Well, not for the next few years, with Peter Sagan is simply so dominant. So they have to seize it. And there's, as we've seen with Michael Matthews and the commitment that Sunweb put into scoring those points on simply intermediary sprints on Sunday, we see how much it means to whole teams to get points wherever they can.
It's potentially quite good news, this intermediate sprint, isn't it, for the likes of Edvald Boasson-Hagen, who would really fancy his chances today in the sprint, and Sonny Colbrelli, maybe not so much, but maybe Andre Greipel and Alexander Kristoff, who have lost a bit too much ground in the green jersey competition to really be proper threats for the jersey, which is kind of distilling down to a battle between Kittel and Matthews. So if they're both forced into the sprint, particularly Kittel, it'll just knock a little bit off what he's able to deliver at the finish line, won't it? And it'd be interesting to see whether Boasson-Hagen even bothers. Yeah,
it will be. I think you've got to make a decision sometimes. Do you want to chase stages, or do you want to chase the green jersey? So there'll still be some riders that haven't cleared that up quite in their head. Chateau de Milandes.
Oh, now.
I know some stuff about this one.
Yeah, well, this has a very famous former owner.
Well, the Lords of Comont owned this and most of the previous castles we've seen.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until when? In the 1930s, Ned?
Well, a certain Josephine Baker bought this castle in 1947. And she was a phenomenal woman, a singer, dancer, actress, review artist, an American, and also a member of the Resistance. Born Frida Joseph McDonald in St. Louis in Missouri, United States. But in September 1939, she actually worked as a counterintelligence agent, mobilising for the Red Cross. And in late November 1940, after the Battle of France, she joined the secret services of France Libre and served in Morocco between 1941 and 1944, where she supported American and colonial troops and began a long jeep tour, performing important missions and using her musical scores to conceal messages, would you believe? She then joined the Women's Air Force after that, and after the liberation she continued with her Red Cross activities. But as I say, she married in 1947 and an orchestra conductor, Joe Bouillon, and they bought the Milandes estate, and that's where she lived. And we look down at the peloton now and try and pick out some of these jerseys that we've been talking about. The green jersey of Marcel Kittel is visible in about 20th position. He's got what looks like most of his lead-outs working for him. Julien Vermont is the rider at the front, but then in front of Marcel Kittel are all the big lead-out men. Fabio Zabattini is the rider in front of him in blue. Then the white jersey also belongs to a rider from Quick-Step Floors. That's Zdeněk Stybar, I'm pretty sure, the Czech national road race champion, who will normally drop off Zabattini and Kittel for the last lead-out. The last phase of the lead-out, I should say. So it looks like Kittel is gearing himself up to sprint here. Just under 3 kilometres for the breakaway until they get to the sprint. And I don't think that, much like we saw with the King of the Mountains point at the Côte de Domme, I don't think they're going to contest it necessarily. Although there is a cash prize being offered of €1,500 for first place and 1,000 for second place. So that might be a little bit of factor in their thinking.
The difference there where Vasil Kirienka keeps the aero helmet on, and
it's almost a smile from it. That is a proper smile from Vasil Kirienka, and that might be a first. I'm not sure I've ever seen that before.
yeah, not on a bike, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Looking very relaxed. Again, this is we see different days represent different things for different riders. Marcel Kittel, this is a very, very important day. For Chris Froome and Team Sky, this is a little bit of an active recovery day compared to the responsibility and workload they have on the mountain days, and especially this weekend just gone.
2K to go for the lone pair of riders up front. It's interesting, I saw quite a few Sunweb riders towards the back of the peloton last time we saw them, but maybe the mountain domestiques who worked so hard for Warren Barguil. The riders, Lawrence ten Dam was towards the back. It would be Nikias Arndt and Roy Corvers, Raman Sinkeldam, Albert Timmer. Those will be the riders who Michael Matthews will be relying on to propel him to first place. Well, first place in the sprint, but effectively third place on the road at the intermediate sprint, which is hard upon us now. Just 1.5k to go for Offredo and Jesbert. Be interesting for us to do our reconnaissance as we see this intermediate sprint for the first time on our cameras, and then 3 minutes later we'll have the bunch where the race will be really on. But useful for us at least to have a little look at what this looks like now. The final K. 1 kilometre to go for Offredo and Jesbert, and they will take the only intermediate sprint of the day alone and out front with a 3-minute lead over the peloton. Behind them though, we could see Marcel Kittel and Quick-Step Floors, as well as we imagine Michael Matthews and his Sunweb team in particular, getting ready and getting their riders in position to try and sweep up the 15 points in the green jersey competition, which would come with third place on the road. So the sprint before the sprint, if you like. Johan Offredo, the first attacker of the day, attacking as the flag dropped, anticipating that maybe 3-4 riders would come with him. He got about 100 metres in front of the peloton, turned around to look around and saw that absolutely nobody at that point wanted to come with him, and he shook his head ruefully as he imagined himself doing a Guillaume van Kiersbulk, his teammate, who in the opening week soloed his way in the breakaway. Didn't want that, and eventually there was another reaction, and it was almost inevitably from Team Fortuneo Oscaro and the young Frenchman who managed to set fire to his hotel room on the rest day by leaving a paper napkin on an electric radiator. Elie Jesbert has joined Johan Offredo. 8 years separate them, and half a wheel length separates them on the road as Offredo just rolls through the intermediate sprint and takes the maximum cash prize of €1,500 and very little else apart from 20 rather irrelevant green jersey points. the real battle is yet to come.
I tell you what, if Elie Gisbert attacked today to get up the road to avoid all the embarrassment within the peloton, it may have been a mistake, because now
everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, what was just a little detail buried in the middle of L'Equipe is now national news, as everybody recalls.
That backfired.
How he nearly burnt down a Campanile hotel on his rest day. All the guests in his wing had to be evacuated.
Story being told over
That's
and
a very
over
good point.
again all over the world, saving commentators' lives. And there he was, just avoiding embarrassments in the peloton.
Vermont, Brambilla, Jack Bauer, and Philippe Gilbert, Zdenek Stybar, Fabio Zabattini, Marcel Kittel. That's the order of Quick-Step Floors riders. And behind them, Lotto Soudal. I've got Andre Greipel to look after. Katusha look like they're also lining up Alexander Christophe to try and snaffle some points here. So we're going to have a proper battle. The rider I can't... Oh, there he is. Yes, there are 4 Sunweb riders there. So Michael Matthews being moved to the front as well. And really, it's... most pressure here, I think, is on Michael Matthews, who has to take these advantages of chipping away at Marcel Kittel's lead in the green jersey competition. He leads by 52 points over Michael Matthews. And the peloton now have 1k to go. Talking about rest day shenanigans, one of the riders in the Quick-Step Floors train there, Jack Bauer, posted a video of himself playing what I can only describe as mean guitar. David, did you see that? He's a bass guitarist.
Yeah, no, here goes Quick-Step's leading out now.
All right, so it is for the first time to stop talking about bass guitars and burning hotel rooms and concentrate on the sprint for the intermediate. So the green jersey and Marcel Kittel just going through the motions on the left-hand side. Still got 3 men to work for him, and it's a straight battle between Kittel and Matthews. Matthews in the middle of the road, Kittel moving to the front in the green jersey. He's got Andre Greipel and Alexander Christophe on his wheel. Matthews is uncomfortably far back at the moment. Kittel yet to open out his sprint. Fabio Zabattini just leading him to the line, and now they go, and it's Andre Greipel on the right-hand side of the road with the black helmet and the red jersey. Michael Matthews, so much at stake for him in the middle of the road, but Kittel, I think, is going to get there first, just coasting over the line. Well, it's Greipel, Kittel, pretty close for them. Christophe in 3rd place. Look, Bosenhagen was sprinting too, perhaps surprisingly, and Michael Matthews has come away with the wrong result there. So the Australian perhaps just getting his lead out slightly wrong there. Certainly a very committed sprint from Michael Matthews, but well, Greipel has taken maximum points there, 15, and Marcel Kittel takes